Hey Archer Boy, Mr. XP here, back with another video on the channel. We're back again with NFS Unbound, or NFS Unbound. We're back with another NFS vid, and we're here going to be talking about the concept and continuity timeline of NFS. I'm not going to say anything. I'm really pissed off right now, and I just messed up the recording again. So now we're going to go ahead and do it this way and my way. The first thing I want to say is that I ended up recording it last night. It is now October 21st. I came home from my day job yesterday. I was really tired last night. I tried to record it and I could not get the recording right. And now, again, for a second time, I screwed up the recording. So now I'm going to go ahead and get right to it. I'm not going to talk too much. We're just going to get right to the continuity of the Untold concept timeline of NFS series in general and everything like that. So we're gonna start here at 1 minute here in the vid about let's see, the main concept of NFS. The main concept of NFS in general is that the game, people don't seem to realize how the NFS series is, and NFS really, it's kind of hard to explain it this way because I really want people to understand that the NFS series, it goes into aspect of like realism and not realism, like arcadish racing, and a lot of people don't seem to realize how they really talk or explain the series in general, because a lot of people have to understand that EA did a lot of things to make the games what they are, but people don't really see the main understanding of the game because they introduced the multiplayer aspect so much over the years and they changed it. And I don't want to like diminish anything that EA worked on, but it's just really important to know that half the NFS series is really important because a lot of people don't seem to understand that with the NFS series being, you know, somewhat realistic and somewhat cartoonish, is like kind of hard to depict what is what. And a lot of people have to understand that if we want a realistic racing game, but yet though also something that's a bit, you know, relaxing, we need a good concept story for it. And a lot of people have to know that with everything that we've done for the NFS series over the years, really didn't turn out to be anything important, because if you look at games like Assetto Corsa, Lamborghini, the tournament championship thing that was going on a couple years ago in 2020, and you had games like FM being a real simulator racing game, not like Gran Turismo, because Gran Turismo to me is not a realistic simulator. You know, they don't really do anything important. They don't really set any real realism to some degree, because like I said, I don't see Gran Turismo as a simulator game. I see it like as a mechanic simulator. So I think that's where people kind of go wrong with Gran Turismo and keep preaching and praising the game about it being like a real life simulator better than Rosa, which is not, because in FM you focus only on racing and taking care of the car. That's it. In Gran Turismo you do other things that make no sense to me, because you're just basically being a mechanic for the game. You spending more time fixing and maintaining the car than actually racing in the game, and I don't like that. So we're not going to talk about that, but that's just what I'm trying to say as one of the parts for this topic here for the main concept of NFS. But with NFS, you know, series in general, to make the game be really realistic but yet arcadish, it's kind of hard to balance that kind of balance, but it's real simple because a lot of people have to understand where I'm coming from for that, because NFS, I want it to be more realistic, be a reflection of life in a better way, not in a cartoonish way that doesn't seem real. And that's where a lot of people kind of get wrong with that, for that aspect. And if I really wanted to go in deeper on details for that, I would, but just to keep it, you know, steady on the main concept of NFS, you know, of what the series is that I want NFS to be a game that actually, you know, stays true to what it is and not change. Don't bring cartoonish things that don't seem realistic to the game, but yet again don't also be too real, where it's not like not being a reflection of life kind of thing. You know what I mean? And for example, with the rumors for something else too, I would get into is with the bikes, because people wanted NFS to be like Midnight Club, and you have to realize Midnight Club was different from Rockstar and how they designed the game, because in NFS, people wanted EA to add street racing bikes like the Kawasaki's, the Suzuki's, the BMW street racing bikes from Tokyo. People wanted in NFS games, but that means the developers would need a lot of Uncle Sam, a lot of money, to build this new mechanic system for like recording bike material, getting the licensing for certain bike parts and companies and stuff like that. So it's a real big deal for that part, and that's the reason why it will cost a lot of Uncle Sam a lot of money to make the extra details for those other features in the NFS series. So a lot of people don't seem to realize what that means and where that goes for the NFS series in general. So in that case, that's all I could say for that part. But that's just only why I said the main concept of NFS needs to be somewhere grounded in real life, not an arcadish factor that makes no sense and made up. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I would say for that. And if we were going down the realistic route, you would need to strip the game of all the other core mechanics of what it is to kind of build it up with real life pieces that keep what you have, but just take the other extra pieces that don't need to be there and replace them with the realism factor to the game. And that's what will bring people back to the NFS series, but also keep them grounded, not like NFS 2015, but still something that really, helps people connect in the new way and the old ways at the same time. So we're just gonna go ahead and keep it at that. And now let's go ahead and move on to the next segment here at 7 minutes and 5 seconds. Why EA made everybody look at the NFS game separate. And I'm gonna somewhat run this into the timeline segment, but I'm gonna keep this short to some degree and then get into the timeline, because I really want to talk about it, because I'm making the intro super short because of what happened. I just messed up the recording 2 times last night and this morning, so now I want to continue where I can now redo this for the final time, because I'm really tired and my throat is dry. I got water here in my studio. So why EA made NFS games differently and why they made everybody look at them separately. The first reason is that why the NFS games were made to look at separately was because at NFS Unbound, NFS Heat right here, you see playing in the background, and you see NFS Payback, NFS The Run, NFS 2015, NFS Undercover, Pro Street, Carbon, Most Wanted, Underground 1 and 2. People don't seem to realize there is a see-through continuity timeline in the background that's really small and hard to see, and people don't really notice that. And that's where it becomes a real issue, because if you look at the NFS games, they're not supposed to be separate, because they still connect to this day, and people don't see the small connections. And not because EA wanted to just add little references or Easter eggs or whatever you would call them to the other games, because the games are connected in a way that does matter. And for example, with the timeline parts, I would tell you with NFS Carbon and Most Wanted, those 2 games are together. But for the timeline, I'm going to tell you the whole thing is different, because for everything starting from where it is to where it is now, it would need to string all the other little pieces together to then make a whole bigger picture. And I've seen that growing up over the years playing the NFS games, and I played almost all of them. I played NFS Underground 1, I played NFS Underground 2, but I never beat it because I got stuck at a part that I couldn't pass in the beginning of the game. I beat NFS Most Wanted so many times. I beat NFS Carbon so many times. I beat NFS Pro Street, and I used cheat codes actually to beat it because the game was too long. And I beat NFS Undercover, NFS Shift 1 I beat NFS Shift 2 Unleashed, and so on. So I beat them, so I could tell you from my experience of knowing what they are. So in NFS series in general, with the games being looked at separately, people don't seem to realize that throughout of the games, they all have their own concept story. But guess what? The concept stories connect to other characters in other games that many people won't notice. And I would talk about Darius is one of them, because we're going to talk about Darius heavily in the timeline segment of the vid here. But that's just one of the characters I could, talk about. But hopefully, now that I'm redoing the vid for the third time, this is my third take redoing it. I could probably mix in the other piece with Darius and Zephyr. I messed that up so bad, but still, Zephyr's one important person. Because actually, no, I shouldn't say I messed it up. Because Zephyr is important from NFS Rivals, and he's a character too, you also know. So I can name all the characters too, by the way, if you want me to, but I'm not going into that. So, with everybody looking at the NFS games separately, is that people lost the bigger picture of what NFS was supposed to be. And that's the whole point of where I'm getting at with that aspect, for the understanding purpose of why the games should be not looked at that way. Because you shouldn't walk around playing the games and thinking that they're not connected. They are. And we're going to go ahead now and switch over to the next segment, to the timeline part. Yeah, now 11 minutes and 24 seconds, we're going to now work on the next segment, that's the timeline. And like I said, you guys can let me know down in the comments section down below if I kind of got something mixed up. But the thing is though, the timeline is not messed up because there's two sections of the timeline that doesn't make any sense. And that's where some people I see made like small version timeline vids of NFS, but never really explain it in detail. They never did. So I'm gonna do it here in my vid and add it to the right NFS, vids on the tube of history. So NFS starts in NFS Underground 1, not in NFS Underground 2. I mean in NFS Carbon. Because in the beginning NFS NFS Carbon, there's a flashback cutscene with Darius. And with NFS Carbon, you don't leave Palmlock City and go to NFS Underground 1. It makes no sense. So in that factor, NFS Carbon isn't really like an intro game to NFS Underground 1. Because in NFS Underground 1, you just got into the scene as an unknown person and nobody knew who you were. And with that being said, you try to make a name for yourself, and in NFS Underground 1, you come across your girlfriend Melissa, whatever her name is. She ends up helping you set up races in NFS Underground 1, and this guy is getting notice of you, and his name is Eddie. And we all know Eddie's Skyline R34 Eastsider Skyline that he has in the game. And with that being said, Eddie wants to race you and do so much, and you beat him at the end of the game. In that aspect, when you beat Eddie, he gets kind of mad or whatever. He has little crew members come after you and like beat you and try to like stop you from racing or whatever and all kind of stuff. So that's how that turned out at the end of the game to some degree. Because like I said, I can't remember some of the details because it's been so long since I beat NFS Underground 1. I only beat it like I think 2 or 3 times I beat it back then. But I was a youngin', so I couldn't remember. But I know I beat it 2 or 3 times though back then when I was like 10, 11 years old. So with that being said, NFS Underground 1 turned out like that. You leave the city, you go to I guess my hometown New York. I guess NFS Underground 1 or 2 takes place in my hometown New York, I guess. You leave the city, you go to another city, you meet Rachel, and she tells you to take her 350Z that's in the parking lot of the airport, or the airport hangar, and you have to go meet her at one of the warehouses. And then you meet her, and they talked about the phone company. They showcased it back then, the Singular phone company. I was making that as a funny reference. I don't know if I should make that a reference anymore because I'm tired. They tell you, or Melissa tells you to meet her at the warehouse. You end up starting to do the new races. She sets you up in the new city, and then a couple of the street racing crew members of other crews hear about you and try to take you out. And you have this whole nother aspect of something else happening in NFS Underground 2, and it turns out to be a whole different thing, being what it is in NFS Underground 2 with Rachel. and she helps you out, do everything, and she ends up helping you take out the other crew members. And then you leave the city and you go to another city, and you end up going to NFS Most Wanted. Now you go to downtown Rockport, and Rog asks you an important question in the beginning of the game. He says, in a way, in the intro part of the game, he says, "How does it feel not racing underground anymore?" And that's why I told you the beginning cutscene in NFS Carbon does not match up with that intro cutscene with NFS Most Wanted, because the thing is, though, it makes no sense. How did that part of the timeline start there if you were in underground from Most Wanted and Rog asked that question? It made no sense. So, okay. And the clip you saw here in the background here from NFS Heat, from the cutscene with the BMW M3 GTR being in Miami, we're going to get to that in a minute here in the timeline. And with that being said, the next part of the timeline is now NFS Most Wanted. You have now, you race against, get help from Mia and NFS Most Wanted, and then you end up racing against the Blacklist, and Razor took your BMW M3 GTR from the beginning of the game. Then now Mia tells you have to climb up the Blacklist, beat number 15 to number 2 on the Blacklist to get to Razor to do the one-on-one boss race with him. And Razor tells you after you beat him at the end of the game, he tells you that there's someone bigger and badder out there. And he says something along the lines of that. And with that being said, Razor ends up telling you that, oh, you can't beat me and everything, nothing's gonna be simple for you. And Mia lets you go and takes in Razor. And then Cross and his assistant asks you, where's the guy in the car? Where's the guy in the BMW? And it ends up turning out to be a whole new thing. And Cross' famous meme comes out of nowhere, and he yells at his assistant saying, "Send everyone," or whatnot, after you. I'm too tired to do the meme, so I'm just gonna say it like that, the way I said it. I don't know how it would sound on the recording. So in that case, now you have the FBI, you have Condition 6 after you. And I will get a bit into Condition 6, the FBI, to some degree in a minute later on. But later on, you go ahead and you jump the bridge at the end of the game when you get the call from Mia, and you jump over the bridge at the end of the game. And a key fact about that bridge, the construction company, that's what I forgot to talk about in the second take. The construction company. The construction company that made the bridge in NFS Most Wanted 2005 is the same construction company that's working on certain buildings or places in NFS Undercover. And yes, I said that right. You have the construction company that worked on that bridge is working on a casino in Tri-City in NFS Undercover. So this is, like I said, this see-through continuity, see-through line that many people do not see, and that's the Untold concept story, is really deeper than you think. So the construction company that made that bridge that you jump at the end of the game, they're in NFS Undercover. And you jump that bridge with the BMW and you get away from Cross and the FBI. This is the Condition 6. But the thing is, though, you now go ahead and go to NFS Carbon. You escape to the city, to Palmont City, and you jump that bridge. If you turn around on that dark road on the mountain in NFS Carbon, the road will start to curve to the left. It will curve left, and if you jump the bridge and you glitch your way through the bridge in NFS Most Wanted and you keep going, you're gonna drive on a glitch part of the road that look like you're gonna fall off the map. You're not. Keep going straight. The road is gonna curve to the right. You're gonna hit a wall, and you're gonna keep going to the right till you can't go anymore. You completely stop to a dead end stop, and that road connects to the mountain that you drive in the intro of NFS Carbon. And that road is where you end up getting stopped by Cross in the mountain by the construction truck that's parked on the road in the mountain. And Darius shows up with Nikki. And Darius tells you, "What are you doing back in Palmont City?" And the thing is, though, Cross tells you that tells Darius that he has 150 1,000 bounty on his head. Owner saying like, wow, that's a lot of coin for someone like you. You racked up a big check Owner on your head over the time being while you were gone. And then Nikki is forced to work with you because Darius said so. And at the time, she didn't know about what was going on. And now we're talking about NFS Carbon. And NFS Carbon is a big one because it's part of the continuity and set the big milestone changes for later on in the series. And NFS Carbon ends up being the way it is. You beat everybody, and the thing is though, Darius, you get to him and now you have this whole new thing be exposed, because he says to you when you get ready to do the boss race, he says to you, I gave Nikki everything you couldn't have. And with that being said, you don't know what he means. And why did the race start in front of the Troy Hotel Casino building? Why did it start right there? Because Nikki fell in love with Darius after you left Palmont City from the flashback in the beginning of the game. And at that point of the game, basically, Darius had bought that Troy Hotel Casino for Nikki as a boyfriend/girlfriend present. He bought that for her. He put the deed to the casino in her name by kicking the manager that owned that hotel/casino, kicked them out and took over. And this is where I'm going to touch base on something, and then we're going to circle back to Darius, because you want to know how Darius was able to have all that power and money to do that? It's because that Zephyr from NFS Rivals is Razor's big brother from NFS Most Wanted. Zephyr went ahead and gave Darius 100 million plus in money, Uncle Sam in cash, and he gave him an audio rate as a gift. The red and black and white audio rate you see in NFS Carbon, that was a gift from Zephyr, because Zephyr saw potential in Darius as a small boss, and as a protege he took him under his wing by giving him so much, Uncle Sam, so much money to do what he wanted. Darius didn't want money. He didn't want fancy high-class street racing toys in his garage. He wanted power. And Zephyr gave that to him because he saw potential in Darius. Darius ended up taking over Stack Deck territory, and he ended up getting himself a small crew, and he made them crew bosses. That is Kenji Bushido, and then you have from Chinatown, you have Angie 21st Street from the refinery section in Palmont City, and you have Wolf TFK that takes over the college area in the west side of the city. So you have them answering to him, and he took over Stack Deck by creating the casinos and uses them as his cash money flow of making Uncle Sam back that he spent, because he spent a lot of Uncle Sam to bribe the 5-0, buy crew members, buy different crews, and keep them in check, to keep their mouths shut and to follow his rules, and for them to keep to themselves and keep their territories in check and whatnot and stuff like that. And he did a lot of things, and that's what Darius did. So like I said, he got that all from Zephyr because Zephyr saw potential in him as a protege. Then you beat Darius, and then when you do the part 2 of the boss race of Darius in the mountain, the Canyon Duel race in NFS Carbon, he doesn't say anything to you. He's pissed because he's about to lose everything, and he needs to stop you now here in the mountains. And you beat him, and at that point later on, you end up going ahead and talking to Darius at the end of the race back in the city, and he says that there's someone bigger, badder, and faster and stronger than you out there. And he's talking about Zephyr, and he ends up having no choice but to run. Darius is now on the run. He goes into hiding. I also covered the secret audio rate he did. He tried to create a back door in case if anything got hairy, and he ended up buying another audio rate. How you think after you beat NFS Carbon, you end up getting that powder blue, sky baby blue audio rate in the Quick Race series from the garage, from a secret garage in the little area from the intro when you do the crew races with Neville and Nikki, testing out how to do like the different ability things like scout, draft, blockers kind of thing in NFS Carbon. there's a secret garage in that area where Darius is hiding that other Audi R8, and you end up getting it because, like I said, Darius has no choice but to run in a way because you find out about that secret garage after you beat him. But there's no paperwork or no little info text or anything about that. Excuse me. So Darius ends up having no choice but to run because Zephyr might come after him. So now you mess with Zephyr to some degree in a major way. You took his little brother out and put him in the joint in jail. That's Razor. And then you took out his protege, Darius. And Darius lost all that 100 mil that he gave him on that by, creating power for him. And now he's scared what Zephyr might do to him. So he's on the run. And this is where now we will talk about Zephyr in the timeline. Because Zephyr's from NFS Rivals. And Zephyr, like I said, this is how much of a strong touch he has, because how he got all those high-class toys in his garage that you would somewhat see in NFS Rivals is not really his garage, but I'm just going to use that as an example foothold for you guys to kind of get the gist of what I'm talking about. All those toys you see Zephyr would have, like the Ferrari LaFerrari and the Lamborghini Aventador and everything like that. All those high-class toys that you would somewhat guess someone would have in a garage, Zephyr had them. And it's because that he wanted to get certain people to work for him. And he has people in high places working for him. And with that being said, he also has one particular person being his supplier. And this is where we now turn to NFS Undercover, which I said in my first 2 takes, I really wish that they could redo NFS Undercover, because that's the biggest game in the series. NFS Undercover has something important, and we're going to talk about that, because in NFS Undercover, you play the game and it's a dope concept script from head to toe. The only thing is, though, at the end of the game, why would they introduce the Yakuza, the Chinese Mafia, at the end of the game to you? It makes no sense whatsoever. And that's where it becomes a big twist to you, and it's so confusing. But this is where I would tell you how it connects to the timeline. Because in NFS Undercover, you race and you mess with a person named G-Mac, Gregory McDonald. And he is Zephyr's supplier. He does certain jobs for Zephyr, and he gets cars from all over the world, in a way, from Tri-City, and he ends up shipping them to certain people that work for Zephyr. Zephyr needs these high-class toys that he gets from certain people with G-Mac to deliver to him. And in that case, he ends up shipping a lot of cars to him. And in that matter, how you think the BMW MT-GTR ended up in Miami? Because G-Mac got his hands somehow with someone able to get special toys, able to ship the car to down in Miami from wherever in Tri-City. And that's how he ended up getting the BMW MT-GTR to some degree in Miami, because he has shipments or ways of shipping cars across the country, and Zephyr is his supplier. And after that point in that matter, we end up now knowing what happened next, because now, in a way, because we're going to go back to Zephyr, I want to talk about this piece here because I never got to talk about it in the first 2 takes I did. The BMW M3 GTR got picked up at the Miami port by you-know-who from the beginning, if you guys saw here in the vid, Lieutenant Mercer from NFS Most Wanted, from NFS Heat. Lieutenant Mercer is in Zephyr's pocket. Yes, you heard me right. Zephyr has 5-0 Captain Lieutenant Mercer in his pocket working for him. How you think he was doing all those illegal things in Miami at the port in NFS Heat? Because he took a particular car he needed to pick up from a shipment from G-Mac, because G-Mac had shipped out the BMW on the cargo ship, on the freight ship that ended up going on the ocean front, leading to Miami. So he ended up getting the car there at the loading docks, and that's how he ended up having it there. But then, after you took out Mercer at the end of the game, you see Torres there. And Torres, we don't know what happened it just cut to black at the end of that cutscene at the end of the game, and we and not knowing what happened to Lieutenant Mercer or Torres to some degree with the BMW M3 GTR. So in that matter, I could tell you where the BMW M3 GTR ended up in another area, which you see here now, NFS Unbound playing in the background. NFS Unbound, somehow the BMW M3 GTR ended up on another cargo ship and ended up being shipped up to Chicago, downtown Chicago, and ended up at the loading dock in Chicago. And there's a company in NFS Unbound in downtown Chicago near the port, where I think that there's a company that's a subsidiary company to a company from another game in the NFS series that I have yet to connect to, because there's no way in hell how did the BMW MT GTR ended up in NFS Unbound if we never knew where the car came from. And I just gave you where the car came from because it must have got shipped or delivered from Miami to Chicago. And I looked it up on Google Maps. There is a format lake or riverbed or oceanfront that leads to the ports of Chicago. How you think that they're able to get goods up there by boat? I think to some degree. So that's how I figured out that piece of continuity right there. So like I said, all in all, throughout all of this, Zephyr is the one that's pulling these strings. He's the one creating all this chaos, because Zephyr is either, these are the three reasons why I would tell you what Zephyr has planned. Because either A, Zephyr was part of the Yakuza or the Collective from NFS Undercover, or NFS The Run that's connected to NFS Payback because it expanded the Collective in that. Either he used to be with them and they kicked him out of the organization of high elites, or he wants to get back at them and he wants to start war. So A, revenge. B, he wants to start war with the Collective or the Yakuza, with both of them or one or the other. And that's basically the two main reasons what I think as a key concept of what Zephyr's trying to do. He's trying to create chaos and start a war against the Collective or the Yakuza, the Chinese Mafia, for what they did to him. Probably they must have did him dirty, I think. So that's what I think could happen, because in a way, throughout this timeline vid, the pieces of the puzzle is right there. People just not putting the other pieces together. And this is not me talking from another aspect. I'm just pulling things from the games that I see that fit perfectly. And it can't be no coincidence all of this is happening. And nobody's not noticing it. And that's the key concept of the timeline right there for NFS. So Zephyr has yet to hear the rumors about you taking out his little brother, Razor, sending him to the joint to jail, and for you to take out his protege, Darius, and for you to take out his supplier in NFS Undercover, that's GMAC. Okay, you took out three important people in his organization of what he's trying to build to start a war. He needs the suppliers to get the cars. He needs Darius for the parts and having a secondary person as a right-hand man kind of person thing to help back him up if anything goes to, hell or whatnot. And Razor is his blood, his brother. He would do anything to get his brother out of trouble or get him out of any kind of hell he's in. So Zephyr is like Dante from Fast 10. He's gonna rain hell on everybody after he finds out what happened to his little brother. So that's just that. So we're gonna go ahead and end this part of the segment here in the vid, and we're gonna focus on now the next segment that is going to be the reasoning for the big bad. So we're gonna mark it here now at 34 minutes on the dot. The next big baddie in NFS. So why they stopped making big baddies, like big bad villains, after NFS Rivals 2014? Because the reasoning why that they stopped creating these big baddies for like villains and stuff like that to go up against the main character of the game after NFS Underground all the way up until NFS Rivals, why did they not make a game where the concept of a villain be some bad person, not like a friendly person? See, with NFS Unbound here as an example, they made Yaz as a friendly person to you in the end, because you and her, because it actually makes more sense if you play as a girl character, not a guy character. In NFS Unbound, in NFS Unbound, they made a continuity piece of a concept timeline or see-through line that speaks truth, that many people don't realize, that you need to play as a girl character to see it, because Yaz has a soft spot for a friend that's a girl, not a guy, because you two grew up as like sisters in the foster system, as orphans in a way, before Rydell adopted both of them. He adopted them and took them in as little girls in a way to, raise them as his own. And in that aspect of that, he basically wanted to take care of them as like little girls for him, and he raised them as sisters to be there for each other. And they let some pedal rivalry in NFS Unbound separate them. So in that aspect, through that, now to revert back to what I said about Zephyr, why did they not make this next big baddie, this next big bad villain, be someone like him? Because he is ruthless. Zephyr wants to create chaos. In NFS Rivals, he didn't want to destroy the rival, grind them into dust, and help the Street Aces rise and be the top superior, people in the city, in Redview County. No, he wanted to stir trouble on the rival side and stir trouble on the Street Aces side. He wanted to create chaos because that's what he's known for. So that's what I was trying to get you guys to understand, why we haven't had another big baddie like Zephyr since then. Because the way how EA wants to create the games, they want to create them in this aspect of like not balancing a concept story with game mechanics. But yet again, people need to understand it's not that simple to balance both of them or one or the other, because you need to have a strong hand in one, but yet still balance both of them to give them the right amount of time to grow on people, like the concept script for the characters, and connect with them in that aspect, and then also still chug along by keeping the game new and feeling new from an aspect of the game's mechanics of like the car handling and stuff like that. And that's the aspect of what I'm trying to say for that part, because it's really important for people to connect to the characters and the concept story from the concept script, and also the game's mechanics, to feel like the game is new and really moves them, just like it did me over the years. So in that aspect, that's what I would say, why I would wonder why we never had another big bad villain after Zephyr since then. We had a few, but not the way you might think, you know what I mean? So, because either A, they turn out to be like a snarky person that was a bit mean to you in the beginning, but then turned friendly, or someone that like betrayed you like Yaz in NFS Unbound, and then turn their back on you, then have them basically come back to you as a friend and settle the dispute that you had between each other. That's why I said you have to play as a girl character in NFS Unbound to understand that sisterly or sisterhood love to Yaz that she has for her. Excuse me, because she looks at her like a sister, because they grew up together. In the beginning of the game, they talk about that. So that's that I could say for that part of the continuity, for that part, and that section of the segment, for why we never had another big baddie in the game, another big bad villain. And yeah, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the last and final segment of the vid, and that is going to be here at now 38 minutes and 50 seconds. We're going to talk about where EA plans to take the series. I was about to say something else. I could say Criterion, because they're the ones making the new NFS games, really. Criterion or Ghost Studios, where they had somewhat tried to plan to take it. But like I said, for what I could tell you, for this section, for where EA plans to take the NFS series next, is, for me, I could say IDK. It's a big I don't know with a question mark. I do not know where the series will go. It's just that for people like me, like Theo, Black Panther on the tube as gamers, people that like the NFS series and really support it, hope and kind of pray that the game doesn't die out. Like I said earlier, we do not need all these battle royale type games like we have right now in Apex. You have Call of Duty Warzone, you have Fortnite, you have X Defiant, the finals, Valorant, Overwatch 1 and 2, and you have Rogue Company. You have now First Descendant as a new battle royale game. We don't need all of these battle royale online multiplayer battle royale kind of games. We need a game that could immerse yourself in it, in the concept story, and really give you some kind of character or feeling to feel like you could actually connect to the characters and connect to the game, like I just said in the last segment, but also to still bring a lot of new things to the table and bring new mechanics to the table that would really keep people hooked and, understanding that the game is more than what it is. Because in the other aspect of what I could say for the series is that people left the game only because it wasn't real enough for them, or too arcadish and cartoonish for them, or they want it to be not enough arcadic. So that's what I could say for that. But in my aspect of why I don't want the game to die out is because that they just need to bring something like rank or something real competitive, but yet to keep it fair and balanced and respectful, because people nowadays don't have respect for the general factor of the sport of racing. But yet again, it's part of what some people take serious, like me, because racing is not just another cool sport to deal with. It's a form of art. And that's what I love about racing and racing games in general, because that's something that's been really close to my heart growing up. And like I said, I had a special thing with a special family member with my grandpa. And I want to just say that I didn't know he was a mechanic in Jamaica. And with that being said, I ended up not knowing how much I fell in love with cars. And it was always in my blood, basically, being around cars growing up. And even though I never got the chance to do much stuff with him before he died back then, but it was something that I really hoped that my understanding knowledge of what I learned over the years would transpire into cars to what I love now today. So the key aspect of what I could say about NFS being better for the series and people to give the respect or recognition, or for the game to not die out to be what it is. I just hope the game will grow and the developers will see something in the racing, scene and the racing factor aspect of games. That way, really connect to people and expand the game. Because like I said, the gaming world is too diluted with all these battle royale multiplayer co-op games. We need a game to really immerse ourselves in, but also take a break from like the first person shooter aspect, the RPG aspect. We need something to really connect us another way. And that's the whole point of NFS. And the concept script has to get improved better. You can't bring corny little one-liner type characters that don't seem big enough, But that's the end of that. And I just want to say to you guys that it's really important that you guys stick around and help out building the NFS series and keep the community alive, and being there for the ones that really do push and expand the game. But all I could say is that I just hope and pray that the game gets better from this point on, from Unbound, but people really see the real continuity, see through line in the Untold story that nobody knows about it from EA. But it's your boy Mr. XP. Thank y'all for watching the NFS timeline vid, and I see you guys in the next one. Please like and subscribe, and I thank y'all for watching.